Hey everybody, KC here, and I'm with Michael Sansolo, and so we're recording this in a Wegmans parking lot, quite obviously. So this Wegmans is in Harrison, New York, and it opened just right in the first year of the pandemic. I think the pandemic really kicked in March. I think this opened August, September, October, something like that. And actually, I had not been to this Wegmans. It was one of those things where I wasn't going to drive this far to go to stores, and for some reason never made it to it, and decided Michael was in town. Michael has a ton more experience shopping at Wegmans because he used to go to school in upstate New York, and where he lives in Maryland. So he walked me through it and had a chance to experience the store. And well, let me ask you a couple of questions first. First of all, how does this store compare to the stores that you've been to, that you're more used to shopping in?
The basic store layout is very similar. I mean, Wegmans has a couple of models, but it's basically the same store. I think the point you made right at the beginning, there's no overestimating the impact COVID has had on stores like Wegmans. And again, I'm a Wegmans fan. My wife and I shop there once a week, even during the pandemic. But COVID has cost Wegmans the ability to have all of their food service out, which always created this great first impression, great smells of food. A lot of the cooking sampling they used to do has gone away.
It's a really good point. I didn't smell anything in that store.
You didn't smell food, and it used to be a store, I would walk in here and get hungry.
Right.
Because I was smelling, they might be cooking some fish.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times we walked in, smelled something, and bought exactly what they were cooking. And COVID has taken that away. So, while Wegmans, they're doing great.
Right.
I'm not going to send anything to the Danny Wegman charity this week, but they've been hurt by COVID because it's not the experience you used to get in a Wegmans.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I can remember one Wegmans I was in once. I think it was in Massachusetts. And you walk in and there was a guy there making crab cakes, and he only had a certain supply. And if you wanted a crab cake sandwich, you had to stay online and you got it. But there was an enormous amount of animation, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of theatricality. What I find interesting about this store is that, to me, all the magic is pretty much on the left-hand side as you walk in, right?
The perishables.
That's the perishables. Fresh. I don't know. I hate the word fresh food. Right? Perishables rot. Fresh food doesn't. So I think that that's where all the magic is. It's interesting to me, and one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because we had the story just the other day about how Wegmans is going to be coming to Norwalk, Connecticut, 2.5 miles from where I live, competing with a lot of retailers in that area. So I was just kind of curious to see what one of their newest stores looks like. The right-hand side of the store, which is all grocery, right? To me, it almost diminishes the power of what's going on the left-hand side of the store.
I mean, that's an interesting take. I disagree with you on it, but it is really two stores in one.
Right.
When you're on the left-hand side of whatever store you're in of Wegmans, when you're in that fresh area, the bakery, the meats, the prepared foods, it's a certain kind of store. The grocery, it's almost as if the differentiation is the prepared foods, the fresh foods, and the convenience is that you can go to the other side of the store and get your laundry detergent, your breakfast cereals, whatever. The other thing, and it's instantly noticeable in a Wegmans, is private label is the star of the grocery section.
A lot of price signs too, although not as many as I've seen in other Wegmans stores.
And me neither. And I know it because I've been shopping them for a while. In previous economic downturns, they have made a great impression with showing you how you can get meals on the table for less money. I only saw one sign in there today saying great meals, $5. $5 a serving.
We're in we may not be in a downturn in terms of the economy, but certainly because of inflation, money's tight for a lot of people. You would think they'd be doing a better job of that.
And there were some signs showing products like their Wegmans brand pasta, 89 cents a box for certain varieties, which again, as a way to battle inflation, it gets a meal on the table very inexpensively. But I think your point is well taken, because it's Wegmans on this side of the store, and on this side of the store, it's a regular old supermarket.
Well, and it's also interesting. I mean, it seems to me in so many ways, this store illustrates the decision that Wegmans is going to have to make down the road, but also the kind of decision that almost every food retailer is going to have to make down the road. Because I walk through the right-hand side of the store, and with certain exceptions, there is nothing in there that I need to go to Wegmans for, except for the private label, okay?
Right.
But in terms of product selection generally, in terms of the categories they're carrying, there's nothing in there I need to get. It was funny, you said before we went on camera, yeah, but we use that side of the store because we buy toilet paper, paper towels, all that kind of stuff. And I said to you, I haven't gone to a store to buy toilet paper, paper towels, laundry detergent, any of that stuff, I don't know, 10 years, because I get it all online. I get it through Subscribe and Save.
Auto replenishment.
Auto replenishment.
Yes.
I don't ever have to do that.
And I think that's why it's such a good point, because every supermarket does have to recognize that a big part of their store is now heavily in competition with Amazon, to use the name of all names, but it's any kind of fulfillment service. And I think what Wegmans does so well is the point of differentiation that brings you to this store is the fresh. And while you're here, you can say, oh, that's right, we need peanut butter, we need sliced bread, we need breakfast cereal, we need toilet tissue. And it's there.
Right.
But if all Wegmans had was that side of the store, they would not be the company we know them are.
But it's also interesting because as they come to Norwalk and they compete with Stu Leonard's is pretty much all the left-hand side of the store.
It's all that side of the store with a smattering of the right side.
That could mean that Wegmans is going to have a competitive advantage there because you're going to be able to do a complete shop there. Although I always tell people, you know, as my kids were growing up, I could do a complete shop. I would buy whatever paper towels, laundry detergent, whatever it happened to be that they happen to have. So I didn't need to go to other places. But I do think, it is a possibility that Wegmans will have a competitive advantage going forward because they have the complete shop. But the other argument is that Stu's is perfectly positioned with 1,200 items largely fresh to actually be the ideal type of store for the 21st century.
Sure.
That at a time when the things that don't differentiate you don't need to be bought in the store, they don't have them.
In essence, what Stu's is, and what Wegmans is to an extent, but a much larger one, it's a fresh food mart with a limited assortment grocery store next to it. And shoppers are overwhelmed in a lot of respects. It's why Trader Joe's, why Aldi's, why Costco, why they work. You don't have to sit there and think about which of 17 ketchups I'm going to buy. We have two. Yeah. It's this one or that one. And so it's possible that it'll be interesting, as you have written, that having Stu's and Wegmans so close to each other, that's going to be an interesting bit of competition. Knowing how both of these companies have operated, because they both strive for the next level. Right. It is possible we're going to see the best grocery war we've ever had, because we have two A-caliber players who are going to say, I've got to make sure I'm better than that guy. Right. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, even though we made the point last week that they've always shared information, they've always been friendly. Stu Jr. came out last week after we ran the story and said, hey, listen, a lot of customers, they're great operators, they're friends. When they open their store, I'm going to be there with flowers. The interesting thing is, while they've shared information over the years, in some ways they are two fundamentally different approaches to the food industry.
Absolutely.
Doesn't mean they can't coexist, but they're very different visions of what retailing is. And I can't help but think that Stu's, even though it is a much smaller company, is actually, even though it's been around forever, is actually a 21st century retailer in a very special kind of way.
I've heard people say that about Stu's. It's possible the killer app, so to speak, of the future is fresh with a limited assortment, and that no one does it better than Stu's. I think you also made a really good point last week that the issue is that the two of them being so close to each other, everybody else better up their game. Because shoppers in the Norwalk, Westport, that whole area of Connecticut, they're going to have a choice now of two really good stores. And ShopRite is a great operator. But they're going to have to make sure their stores are at the level of these guys. Otherwise, people will say, why do I need them? And that's what competition does. It drives us to higher levels. And I think that's what we're going to see in Connecticut.
And I'll say one other thing, which is that the location they're going to have in Connecticut is a great location. It is right off 95. There's a couple of exits on either side of it. Not a problem. I hate this location. This is a weird location. It's hard to find, hard to get to.
It's a strange location, and unless you know the area, there's actually a big highway running about half a mile east to west. There's a large parkway running north-south, and then there's another highway running north-south. There's a lot of corporate parks around here. So unless people want to come to this store, they are not going to just stumble onto it. The one in Connecticut, you're right, it's in the middle of a neighborhood. It's in the busiest street in 3 towns around. It's going to be interesting. And the other thing is, it's cold out here today.
Fun to watch. Anyway, that is what is on our minds this morning. We managed to do this. The camera never fell over. That's a good thing. And as always, we want to hear what's on your mind.